For most people today, the idea of meat lasting 10 years without refrigeration sounds impossible, even dangerous. We've been conditioned to believe that anything without a sell-by date is suspect, and that meat must be frozen, canned, or chemically stabilized to survive more than a few months. Yet during World War II, there was one preserved meat so reliable that it could remain edible for a decade or more, even in brutal conditions. Soldiers trusted it. Explorers relied on it. Families under occupation quietly made it. And then, almost overnight, it vanished from everyday life. Understanding what this food was, how it worked, and why it disappeared tells us a great deal about how modern society traded resilience for convenience. What this 10-year meat actually was, and why armies relied on it. The food was pemmican, a mixture of dried lean meat, rendered fat, and sometimes berries. While pemmican predates World War II by centuries, it was heavily relied upon during the war, especially in extreme climates where supply lines were unreliable. British commandos, Canadian troops, Arctic patrols and resistance networks used it because it delivered enormous calories in a small package and did not spoil when properly prepared. The key was total moisture removal from the meat and complete encapsulation in fat, which prevented oxygen and bacteria from doing their work. When sealed correctly, pemmican could remain stable for 10 years or longer without refrigeration, something modern preserved meats still struggle to achieve. Why pemmican survived where other preserved meats failed. Most preserved meats still contain some moisture or rely on salt alone, which slows spoilage but does not stop it entirely. Pemmican worked because it attacked the problem from two directions at once. First, the meat was dried until it snapped rather than bent, eliminating the water bacteria need. Second, the rendered fat hardened around the meat particles, sealing them away from air. This created an environment where spoilage organisms simply could not function. During World War II, this made pemmican invaluable for long missions, lifeboat rations, and emergency stockpiles that might not be touched for years. How families quietly made and stored it during wartime shortages. Under occupation and rationing, many families could not openly store large quantities of meat. Pemmican solved this problem by being compact, odourless and easy to conceal. Lean cuts from hunted animals, rabbits or rationed beef, were sliced thin and dried near low heat sources or in attic spaces. Fat was rendered slowly from scraps, then poured over crushed dried meat in tins or cloth-wrapped bricks. These were hidden in cupboards, buried in cool soil, or stored behind walls. The food could be eaten as is, crumbled into soup, or fried when fuel was available. For families facing confiscation, pemmican was survival insurance. Why did modern society stop making pemmican, even though it was, so effective? The decline of pemmican had little to do with safety, and everything to do with economics and, taste. Industrial food systems began to favour products that required ongoing production, refrigeration, and regular replacement. A food that could last for 10 years without any intervention simply wasn't profitable. On top of that, pemmican is dense, plain, and honestly, unapologetically functional. As post-war society shifted more and more toward abundance and convenience, foods that emphasized comfort started to replace those designed for endurance. Regulations played a part as well, since modern food safety standards often misunderstand traditional preservation methods that rely on dehydration and fat rather than on additives. Now, what modern survivalists can learn from this forgotten meat is actually quite fascinating. Pemmican teaches a lesson that goes beyond just food, you know. It demonstrates that long-term resilience comes from simplicity, not complexity. You can still make a modern version using lean beef, venison or bison, whatever's available really. The process remains the same. Dry the meat completely at low heat, render clean fat until impurities are removed, then combine and seal it all in airtight containers. If you store it in a cool, dark place, it can last for years. This makes it ideal for emergency kits, off-grid living, or just as a backup protein source when supply chains, well, fail. So, how does this knowledge apply in a modern crisis scenario? Well, in a prolonged power outage, frozen meat spoils quickly. Canned meat runs out. But pemmican does neither. A single pound can provide thousands of calories with no preparation required. None at all. During the Second World War, soldiers carried it because it worked when nothing else did. Today, the same principles apply to natural disasters, economic disruptions, or remote living. You don't need specialized equipment, just patience and respect for the method. Practicing this once builds a skill that honestly lasts a lifetime. Why does revisiting Second World War food preservation matter now more than ever? Well, the disappearance of pemmican reflects a broader loss of practical knowledge. The war forced people to think long-term, waste nothing, and prepare for uncertainty. These were not hobbies. They were necessities. Relearning these skills reconnects us with a mindset that values durability over convenience and self-reliance over dependency. The question is not whether pemmican tastes exciting, but whether it works when everything else fails. And, well, history has already answered that. If you found this deep dive into forgotten Second World War survival food valuable, make sure to subscribe for more serious historical survival analysis, and share this video with others who believe the past still has lessons worth preserving.